Hey guys, Mustached here to review the video game, Cult of the Lamb. Now, I do know that there is a upcoming DLC, so this review will not include that DLC, unfortunately. I did get a glimpse of it. I don't know how much more story it seemed that it was going to add. If I see other, updates, I will make an addendum to this review, if that is the outcome. If this newer DLC is substantial enough to warrant that. But I do think I get the gist of this video game, so we're here to review it. So, let's review Cult of the Lamb, as per usual. If there is a story, which there is, we will review that separately from the gameplay. So let's go over the story first. So, our little lamb character, quote-unquote, dies, but he's introduced and has a deal struck by an entity simply known as the One Who Waits. This entity bestows upon you a crown, which gives the little lamb character the ability to use these cult-like abilities. This entity sets you on forward to put the four other horsemen equivalent and regain vengeance upon them. And that's sort of the long and short of it. There are many characters, sort of, and throughout the story, as you primarily beat the bosses, they will be the ones to sort of elevate why they believed in wanting to hide the One Who Waits down there, and so on and so forth. But it's a pretty straightforward scene of events. Now, of course, there's the outcome where you, as the lamb, are gaining so much power, finally, that this last shackle remaining is the One Who Waits himself, or itself, rather. So, of course, as a canonically finale of the game story, you take on that entity and defeat it. So that is the long and short of the main story of Cult of the Lamb. There's like this one chapter book I saw elsewhere that's a part of the video game, but there is a charm to this simplicity, and I would love, personally, for there to be a mini-series, like on Netflix or whatever thing it is, right? I would love to see, like a character personified as the the lamb himself as a character. Now, selfishly, of course, I really get enraptured in games of this nature. I would love to voice the character, because, I've always wanted to do voice acting, so, yeah. Now, I would suspect that the lamb would have a more softer voice previously, but as the game progresses, or the story in this instance progresses, perhaps the crown is filtering in a new voice. I don't know. At any rate, I would say that the story is serviceable enough to get you to play the game. So, so I would give this story like a generic, it's pretty meh. It's like a 5 out of 10. It's serviceable, but it's not anything groundbreaking, I would argue. That's why I would want a series, because I think there is a lot to explore in this kind of universe, as it were. And even how the lamb treats the newer cult members and interactions and having other characters. I feel like that could really flesh out what type of character the Lamb is supposed to be. And I get that you're supposed to sort of, envelop you onto the character, but I don't know. I feel like there are more, what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of icon characters, and most of them, I'm not saying all of them, but a good chunk of them typically talk. Of course, there being the exception of, say, Link. But I feel like this story is a bit rich, in terms of the lore at least. The further lore, anyway. That, again, getting a characteristic to push us through that, I feel like could only make the game stronger with this, side story thing. That'd be cool, I would figure. But at any rate, getting into the gameplay, this is where things do get a lot more interesting. Now the game is primarily set in a more roguelike stance of a video game. That is the majority of what you would be doing here. Now, what a roguelike is, for those who are unfamiliar with this, is that every time you go out into one of these dungeons, you are randomly equipped with certain weapons, abilities, and so on and so forth, and then from there, it is up to you and your skill with whatever weapon you were given to overcome the monsters and the boss in a randomizer room set as well. But generally it will always lead you to the boss, always, unless there's some alternative story that you're doing or side quest or whatever. So those are the only exceptions. Now, there is a sort of sub-game, I would guess I would call it, within this game. Now, this isn't new to Cult of the Lamb. This is sort of a build-your-base style part of the game, where you require resources and, again, build a base. And again, this isn't the first time that this has been employed. The first example that I would say, at least I played, would be Fallout 4. Now, whether or not that's the first game that employed that, I'm fairly certain that that might not be the case, but it's the first one I experienced, by comparison. So I think it would be fair to compare it to that game and a newer game to see where this one lies in terms of its, more building part of it. Because I do think that the main portion of the game is the most substantive part of the game. That is where you're going to draw most of your attention, time, and skill. But I do want to talk about this other sub-game as well. I don't want to just leave it in there, and leave it hanging, more importantly. So, let's look at Fallout 4. Now, in that game, just as it is, most of your time would probably, it's meant to be that most of your time is meant to be sort of exploring the wasteland. However, that ended up not really being the case when they also simultaneously built into this game a build-your-own-base sort of structure. There were quite a number of players in that game that spent a lot more time doing that than any given quest, as it would turn out. I would say I'd spent a good chunk of time doing it myself. Now, would I argue, is it good? It's hit and miss. There are quite a few things you can build. That is a given. However, there are limitations. You can't, without mods, mind you. With mods, obviously, you can do all sorts of things with Fallout 4. But I'm speaking of base game without mods. So, in that context, we're referring to you can't turn off some buildings, as it were, so you can't alter them out, and that being the exception. And generally outside of that, you're given a great use of tools like walls and guns as a defense mechanism, food structures, water structures. All of this is relevant in Cult of the Lamb. Well, some of it is anyway, and we'll get to what I mean by that. So yes, there is a good chunk of time, and what sets Fallout 4 apart from Cult of the Lamb is, yes, that defensive part of it is that sometimes your base would be raided in this instance. This does not happen in Cult of the Lamb yet. The DLC could add that for all I know. So, who knows, right? So that could be an additive feature yet to be seen. But as of right now, that doesn't seem to be the case. All the while, in Cult of the Lamb, your members could be dissatisfied and leave, and once you're out there, you could face them out there in the dungeons randomly. But that it coincides with their unhappiness, so, you tend to your cult members when they are becoming more and more dissatisfied. There is an incentive to do this part of the video game, whereas Fallout 4, it's sort of just build a base and then sometimes it will be attacked, so might as well cover that aspect first rather than anything else. With that being said, there is less of an emphasis on attacks. Again, they don't seem to occur in this current game, but more so making sure that your cult members are building stuff for you as in resources, to make sure that you have the best shrine, because people are praying to you, or the one who waits, or through you, I guess. And all of that, and so much more. But it is, you could have some customability, you can customize slightly. You can change what your cult is called. I just went with the generic name, Cult of the Lamb. But, at any rate, getting back to sort of the structures, obviously you have more of an upgrade system, so you have faster ways of building your resources while you're going out there, food to make sure your cult leaders are fed, and so on and so forth. And it seems to be prayer incentive. As they pray to you as the player becomes stronger. So there is that incentive. It is driven through their prayers that give you your abilities. That is why there is this more, they balanced it to be like, you should check in with your cult from time to time. Now there is other game that I feel does this a little bit better, just in terms of pure building structures. And of course I'm referring to Palworld, which, has been going through it with Pokemon and all that, but I digress. What sets even Palworld, even from Fallout, is that they give you more empty space to work with, and if there are trees or other things in the way, you can just cut them down. And you'll have this empty space where you can pretty much build the structure. Though, my only criticism as it stands now is there doesn't seem to be a way to square it rather than it being a circular base. As it stands currently seems to be the stance. So there is still criticisms in that game as well, but I do feel like there is a stronger incentive to build structures in that game, because that's what allows you to get your very weapons, rather than powers. So there is there is a balance there as well. And again, going back to Cult of the Lamb, though I would say the abilities are good, I would say they're not necessary. That's the distinction. Pal World, you need at least a weapon. You know? And having resources just happens to come in handy along the way to help you build better weapons along the way. To help you capture more pals. It's a loop that is more geared towards capture the pals, obviously. But anyway, getting back to Cult of the Lamb, in terms of once you're out in the dungeons, the randomized dungeons, you have your quick roll, which is your safety roll, and outside of that, it's, you're avoiding these incoming attacks, which are easily telegraphed to slightly faster via the bosses to test your, your hand-eye coordination, as it were. So the level of escalation is met pretty standardly, I would say. There is a bullet hellish moment that one attack utilizes, I will say. But even that seems to be fair enough to get through. So, just be prepared to look out for potential a lot of stuff happening on the screen. That is my only, kind of get used to being good at the video game requires you to pay attention to, an incoming, splash attack sort of indicator, or blast that are coming outward from the enemy, that being the bullet hell that I am referring to. But the majority of the rest of the attacks are easy to pretty much predict, and so on and so forth. Of course, there are little, specialized enemies along the way, like, do it in order type of enemies, thing going on. You have your, simple charge enemies. You have your ones that are gonna shoot you from a distance, or at least attempt to. So you have a decent variety in the way you're being pitted against. And the boss is the ultimate challenge and there's 4 challenges set aside from the final boss, which is actually 3 bosses, technically speaking, but I digress. As it is, I think this game is absolutely great. Base story, but I think the gameplay far makes up for that. So I will say the gameplay, I feel like the combination of being able to weave throughout the fighting aspect of it and the more strategy part of it, of building up your base to build you back up, is sufficiently balanced, and the challenge is decent enough where I feel like, I would not say it is not your deep dive into, say, Sekiro or something of that nature. It's not that crazy, obviously. So I feel like this could be played by intermediate to expert status, as it were, in the gaming lingo. But as for a score, there wasn't much dissatisfaction or any issues I encountered, so pretty straightforward. So I think a solid 7 or even 8 out of 10 is sufficient. Though, I will say, and this is only due to Pal World, I do feel like the building aspect could have been a little bit stronger, like having a little bit more variety in the things you build, or maybe it's, to sort of feel like when you earn that building, say the place you prayer at, it actually feels like, wow, we actually accomplished a monumental moment. I would say that's the only gripe I have since playing Power World, in that sense. But still good enough as far as that portion of the game is concerned. So, that is my review for Cult of the Lamb. So if you ended up enjoying that, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. One, head over my petition to about small YouTubers. Second, to my PayPal, where you can help support me and my channel directly. And third, to my Discord server, you can join, collab, shill, and do all that cool stuff for free. And until next time, everyone, bye-bye.